Salam and welcome back to Somali Dispatch, its YouTube channel. For news and information relating to Somalis around the world, please visit somalidispatch.com. I'm Abdul Qadir Guled. Somaliland's electoral dispute entered a new realm this week after President Muse Bihi Abdi officially announced that he intends to register new political associations instead of holding the presidential elections slated for this November, a move that could sideline the current political parties whose certificates will expire in December 2022. The Somaliland government has also denied the current political parties their constitutional right to hold rallies and have incarcerated top officials without charge for doing so recently in Hargeisa. To discuss what are the opposition's next moves and what's going on in Somaliland, I spoke with Wadani Party Information Secretary Mohamoud Adam Jama Galal. Mr. Secretary, if you can kindly give us an overview of Wadani Party's view of the country's current electoral dispute and perhaps a way forward would be greatly appreciated.
The country's dispute, political dispute at the moment, is presidential palace made. It's made in the home of the president. It is designed that way, and that's the overview, short answer to the dispute. Basically, the Constitution of the Republic of Somaliland states clearly, in no uncertain terms, the presidential term expires on 13 December, but the Constitution stipulates he must hold election 1 month beforehand. That's 13 November. Because due to his unpopularity, the president is going to extremely great lengths to avoid having an election, which is why he created an argument about on political associations, which are not mandated, by the way, by the Constitution, but are written in a bill of law. And the Constitution says if there's any discrepancy between a bill or a law and the Constitution has supremacy. So from that, we can understand that the presidential elections of 13 November must be first. What he's trying to say is the political association elections must be first, which is complete, total, and utter nonsense. We challenged the government on several occasions to come up with any clause or any law, not the Constitution, but any other law which supports their view. And they've been unable to do so because it doesn't exist. The truth of the matter is the Law 14/2011 has now been relegated to a political association registration law. Previously, it was a political association registration and a ballot law, but the ballot element has been removed by the High Court's or the Supreme Court's decision. So now, without it going through Parliament with some serious amendments, it can only be a registration law. And there is not enough time. Anybody with an ounce of sense knows there's not enough time to go through the parliamentary process, go through the process mandated by Law 14 itself, and end up with an election or a ballot before November 13. Any ballot can realistically happen if the process were started today, can only realistically occur sometime in the spring or the summer next year, 2023. So it's just a smokescreen to avoid elections, a smokescreen to instigate and create a dispute, a political dispute, And so that's our view.
Right.
That's the position we take, and I think, or I know that all of the senior lawyers in Somaliland and anybody, all the intellectuals and the elite know this to be the case.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Galal, for that explanation. There is duality to this dispute. There is obviously the type that you just described, or the one that you just described. And then, of course, there's the one that has to do with getting rid of the political associations or parties that currently have certificate up until the end of this year. And of course, there is the insinuation that the president's term would be extended, and he while he favors that, he's not in favor of having the current political parties exist and compete against him. Is that summation also what's at stake here?
Listen, I don't blame him in the sense that if you want to be the referee and play the game, you will come up with all kinds of ridiculous notions. The fact remains that the current political parties have a valid license for the period where the presidential elections or the period when the presidential elections will take place. They have a license. So we have a license until the 26th December. So, and the law clearly stipulates that that license cannot be shortened even by 1 day. So we have a valid license, but the president wants to create new parties who are learning to walk so that he can beat them in an election. He wants to rig an election. He wants to rig the political association situation, and then have two new complete parties that have no chance in defeating him. But because he's so unpopular, he knows he cannot go against the Wadani party at the moment, which is the largest and most popular party in Somaliland. We got 42% of the popular vote in the last election, in the 2017 election. And since then, public opinion has swung clearly on the side of Wadani, purely because of the president's policies, failed policies. And that's why he wants new competitors. He cannot compete with us, so he wants to create for himself new competitors in the political arena. And this is not on, this is something completely unacceptable. And this is something that will not happen.
Right. Your most recent statement responded to a government press release to the international community as it relates to the dispute. Why do you think that was important to respond to that, as that was also done in English?
Well, because the government put out a statement in English aimed at the international community about a local political dispute. Now, this is disgraceful because that's not the job of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs represents the whole of Somaliland, opposition and the current government, as well as all of its citizens. There's a saying, don't wash your laundry in public. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs' job is to promote Somaliland and not to wash its dirty laundry. And by the way, it's the government that's making the laundry very dirty in public. So it's not even the job of the ministry. But what made us respond was the untruths, the deception, the disinformation that was in that statement. For example, the government claimed that they contacted the opposition parties about the 9th June demonstrations, which is completely untrue. And so we had to set the record straight. And whilst we were at it, give an outline of what was going on, truly going on, because there were peaceful demonstrations in which unarmed civilians were shot at, were beaten, and were arrested contrary to the constitution and the law. And so if they wanted to put out statements in English, we did the same, and we'll continue to do the same.
Right. The international community, you've mentioned and brought them up, it's perhaps now paying more attention to Somaliland, partly because of the U.S. interest, military interest in Berbera. The current dispute is a setback for Somaliland's quest for recognition in terms of...
It would be preposterous to think that the U.S. would be interested in Somaliland if it continues to take the government continues to take the course it's doing. And so we would say it should desist. It should think of the reputation of the country that's been built up over the last 30 years and stop acting like some kind of a tin pot dictatorship and govern in a way Somaliland governments have been known to govern. I don't think the US, with its democratic credentials, would be interested or would touch the Muse Bihi government with a barge pole. So that's our view. I think they have jeopardized that opportunity. And to begin with, I don't think that they made the best of that opportunity in the first instance. I think their trip to the US was ill-planned. I think they didn't understand the dynamics of US politics when they courted only Republicans and mainly neo-cons. When you have a Democrats in office and you have the Biden administration in office, I don't think they looked at the balance of who they were dealing with. I don't think that they thought about the long-term strategic interests of Somaliland and the US, because the trick in diplomacy is to marry those two and make sure that they are consistent. I think they went just to 10 or 11 Trumpites. These are the senators who saved Donald Trump from impeachment, if you look at their records. 2 Democrats in the whole setup. So they don't really understand foreign policy. They don't really understand how to court the US. And I think they've made the situation even worse now with this mayhem that they're causing in Somaliland. And that's a cause for concern for every Somalilander who cares about his country.
Right. And it's interesting that, the president was touting Somaliland's democratic credentials when he was in the States or when he's interacting with the international community. But at home, he seems to be moving away from those hard-gained democratic achievements, which is interesting. But if I may pivot to the next question, Mr. Galal, Mr. Secretary, you yourself is a UK. There is you hold dual citizenship, UK and Somaliland, obviously, and there are a number of MPs that do have those dualities to their citizenship. What efforts are you making? And there are other European citizens in the parliament, be they this Hargeisa municipal officials or the MPs there or the parliament or the representatives. What efforts are you guys making in terms of making this dispute public and perhaps seek reconciliation that way?
Well, I mean, first of all, yes, you're correct. I'm a dual national. My primary nationality is Somalilander. My second nationality is British. I was a Somalilander before I was British, so I'd like to make that clear. Secondly, when we engage with diplomats, MPs, and anybody else overseas, we don't like to talk about disputes. We like to talk about the positive elements of Somaliland, why Somaliland deserves to have international recognition, why Somaliland should have proportionate support when compared to what Somalia is getting, which it should be proportional and equal. This is what we want to campaign for. But the Bihi administration and the Bihi regime, because he's very close to being classified as a regime, is distracting us from the core goal and the core objective, which is to promote Somaliland. He and they are bringing the dirty linen and washing into the public arena, which is absolutely disgraceful. We merely responded. We do our communications through diplomatic channels in a very discreet manner. But when they put out a press release like they did and we responded to, it just shows how amateurish, how crude they are in their diplomacy. And I am very disappointed because the Minister for Foreign Affairs must take full responsibility. I know the minister didn't write the press release. I know the minister probably didn't know about the press release. I know the minister is more learned and more capable than putting out such a release. However, he's responsible for the staff in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And if a letter like that goes out, he has to take full responsibility. So the buck stops with him as far as we're concerned.
Right. I appreciate that. Your press conference addressed, today's press conference actually addressed the arrest that took place last Thursday in Hargeisa. How many opposition officials, journalists, and regular citizens were arrested that day and are currently incarcerated?
On 9th of June, we held a peaceful demonstration. I think everybody who saw the footage saw it was a peaceful, very peaceful demonstration. They saw the manner in which the public, anybody who took part, demonstrated, and they were met with live rounds, rubber bullets, and tear gas. And some of the demonstrators were beaten, and many were arrested for no apparent reason. So at the moment, 14 politicians and journalists are arrested. If I give you a breakdown of that, 12 are politicians, 11 from the Wadani party, all senior seasoned politicians, 1 from the URID party, and 2 journalists. But in addition to that, 4 civilians, ordinary demonstrators who wanted to protest, were released today by the court. I believe that another 8 remain incarcerated. So that's the total amount. And it's very important to point out that the law, and it's not a bill or an act of parliament, it's the Constitution. The Constitution defines how long somebody can be held without going before court. It's 48 hours. All of these individuals who were detained in Mandera were held for 7 days without going before a judge. And so that's illegal in itself. Some of them had medical problems and were denied the medication they needed. They were denied visits from family and their loved ones. They were denied access to legal representation and their lawyers. It's only yesterday they first had access to legal representation. So all of these acts are completely illegal, unconstitutional, and some of them, I'm afraid to say, were beaten and claim to have been beaten. I must say They alleged that they were beaten. Obviously, I wasn't there to witness the beating itself, but there are serious allegations of beatings and other human rights abuses, such as incarceration without the authority of the court, such as keeping people incommunicado and not giving them access to family or legal representation. So all of these things are happening, and they are causing and making a huge dent in Somaliland's hard-won democratic credentials.
The allegation is somewhat on your side a cautionary statement, but in reality, social media these days, it's evident what happened in June 9th in Hargeisa as it relates to authorities dealing with people. And perhaps one of the most shocking
can I just come in there? Yes, I mean, for legal purposes, especially the way this government is going, I must say that these are allegations, as I cannot give a first-hand testimony to the incident myself. These are allegations, but there are so many allegations. People can infer the truth. Also, as you say, on social media, you saw Munir Ahmed Igal with a wound, which is obviously a bullet wound to his leg. Where did that come from? So we have to take these allegations seriously. And, personally, I'm not a court, but personally, I believe these allegations to be true.
I believe as well, because I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yes.
And many people have seen. And one of the most outrageous incidents in all of that, in addition to having Barkhat Batoon shot at and others, and your chairman and your candidate for presidency, Wadani candidate presidents and chairman of Wadani, being almost run over by a police vehicle, perhaps financed.
Well, you saw the footage.
We all saw the footage. Everybody saw that. My question is, though, the linkage that once again UK and EU perhaps has with training and funding the police and other authorities in the country for the purposes of enhancing security. How does that relate to you as a dual citizen yourself?
Well, I think, and again, it's something that you have to blame the current government for. I think the support that they are getting for the RRU and other units, this current government is jeopardizing it by using these units allegedly in a very, very sinister manner. So, it's not something we want to see. It's not something we want to see jeopardized, because we want to be running this country after the election. And so we don't want to come into office with a whole heap of mess and diplomatic problems that we need to deal with. We encourage the government, contrary to popular belief, we want the government to be successful when it comes to the right of Somaliland's existence, the right to Somaliland's recognition, Somaliland having a good reputation overseas. We want the government to be successful. We just think we can do a better job in office in terms of the economy, because the government is in denial. They are claiming there's no inflation when inflation is double, and it's not something that can be attributed to the Ukraine-Russian war. We've had high inflation for the past 2 years, well before the war. We don't like the way contracts, especially the oil and energy contracts, are being given. We think they should be more transparent. Very dubious the way Trafalgar was given that contract. We think we can do better. We think we can do better in the health sector by giving better health service, building more MCHs and clinics, and making sure that they have staff had adequate training. We think we can do better in education. Most importantly, we think we can do much better in reforming the criminal justice system as well as the civil law, because the criminal justice system we have at the moment is based on Somalia. It's based on the criminal justice system bequeathed by the former dictatorship Mohamed Barre. That's why you're getting so many ridiculous charges, such as the ones we heard today. Also, on the civil side, draconian would be the word. On the civil side, there are people in legal disputes over land and territory for 20, 25 years. It just drains people who have ownership are absolutely drained and killed by the system. So we need serious reform in the civil law as well. So we think we can do better. But as far as the overall Somalilander and the overall Somaliland is concerned, we wish them all success. And it really hurts us when they make blunders like they are making today and really ruining the hard-won reputation that previous governments have.
The opposition, Mr. Galal, recently endorsed the plan by the country's traditional elders to mediate the current dispute. Many believe these efforts will be unsuccessful, given how long it's taking for them to even meet with the president. What does the opposition plan to do in case that happens?
Well, basically, we've given these elders, which consist of elders, businessmen, religious leaders and business leaders, we've given them our confidence, we've given them a mandate. So as far as we're concerned, we're ready to listen to any fair arbiter, anybody serious about a sensible, evaluative mediation, we welcome. But it's obvious the government is in the business of wasting time, and we've been putting our demonstrations on hold precisely because we want to see the outcome. Now, if they won't meet these elders, and they won't, sorry about that, if they won't meet these elders and are not interested, we will take any measures that we see necessary in order to ensure that they toe the line and adhere to the law. That's what we will do. And demonstrations is just part and parcel of our plans. It's something that we have a right to do. And I assure you, our demonstrations will be consistent with the law and the constitution.
Is Wadani party confident in the new committee tasked by the president to register the new political associations? And I can, fairly assume that the answer would be no, given some of the analysis and responses given by the opposition party. Then one could ask him or herself, why did the opposition party members in parliament confirm these committees?
Okay, so obviously everybody who's not blind can see the composition of this group is skewed to one side. Everybody can see. But I believe some of the MPs from the opposition parties were also mindful that the president is in the business of wasting time in order to remain office. So they took what they felt, and it's a judgment for each individual MP. It was the less of two evils. They felt rather than give him an opportunity to waste time, they would confirm these commissioners. And all these commissioners can do is the registration process. As I said, Law 14 only allows, it's been relegated to a registration law. There is no ballot or no race within the provisions of that law. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
They can they can carry on with that while we get ready for the.
What about the newly nominated and perhaps to be approved electoral commission?
Well, the newly again, the commission was designed by the president precisely to cause another dispute. But at the moment, we are still in consultations with our MPs and other opposition leaders. So our position will be formally announced. I don't want to announce our position on this channel before the party leadership has had an opportunity to announce. But obviously, everybody can see, again, it's a skewed commission. Somalilanders can see it, even the international community can see it. But I don't want to get into the business of making announcements without it coming formally through the party leadership.
Mohamoud Jama Galal, I can't thank you enough for your time today and for your explanations in what this dispute entails for our viewers and perhaps for everybody who's interested in Somaliland's current political situation. I thank you and have a great night.
Yeah, most welcome. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And, hopefully we'll do it again soon. Okay.
Thank you.